They're 8-1. The night that Steph had 56, Jimmy Butler had 5. It doesn't matter. It's like Steph Curry's taking one more shot a game since Jimmy Butler arrived and averaging 7 more points. I looked at the stats. Turnover differential, Warriors are now first in the league. Assists a game, first. Free throw percentage, first. Like, it's just good vibes. He's just good juice. He's tough. He's intentional. He's physical. In the NFL, we call these force multipliers. They're just guys you put in a room and they make everybody better. And a lot of times analytics can't capture this stuff. Analytics will like certain guys, and I'm like, yeah, they're a bad hang. It's bad energy. And that's why I kept saying, just get Jimmy Butler on the Warriors. I'm watching the Warriors play. Steph had no energy. Nothing against Draymond. Draymond's not a big scorer. It's like they just needed a second behind their ace. And sometimes you need a great motivational speaker. You have a Tony Robbins come in and talk to your company. It's nothing against your boss. It's nothing against Steve Kerr. But, I mean, it's the NBA. If you get to the playoffs, there's 100 games a year. How many times can you give a pep talk? And this team just needed juice. It just needed good vibes. And Andrew Wiggins was sort of – Jimmy Butler he's the anti-Andrew Wiggins. He comes – with physicality, intensity, even at shoot-around. Like, you never have to ask, is Jimmy Butler on the floor? And I'd said this for years about Andrew Wiggins. I'd seen him play live 4 or 5 times. He could drop 28 points when he was at Minnesota. I never knew if he was on the floor. Like, you always know when Jimmy Butler's on the floor. He's getting fouled. He's fouling. He's getting to the line. He's trash-talking. And it's the same with LeBron and Luka. LeBron, has a new energy and a new joy. Steph Curry's playing out of his mind. Even guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe sometimes had to create, obsessed guys had to create motivation. And, I mean, Steph Curry, how fired up can a guy that's going to be first ballot Hall of Fame get trying to be a 10th seed? So right now, they are in the playoffs, and I've said this, here is my NBA finals bubble. I think there are 6 teams, Lakers, Warriors, OKC, Nuggets, Celtics, Cavs can win the championship. Knicks, I feel like, just may not be able to defend the pick and roll good enough. Robinson's back. They'll be better defensively. I don't buy Houston. They can't shoot. And I don't buy Memphis. I still think they're too young. But here is Steve Kerr on Jimmy Butler and what he brings.
I think they complement each other really well. Jimmy's a phenomenal all-around basketball player, two-way player. He's at his best when the ball is moving. I think we can do a better job of getting him involved. It's still a work in progress, but I love Jimmy's fit here. I think he's perfect next to Steph and Dre, and it's showing. Obviously, I think we're 8-1 since we got him with him in the lineup. That's not by accident.
Yeah, it's not at all. One NFL story, and I was confused about this yesterday. We as a staff this morning, we're kind of trying to figure out this jigsaw puzzle in Minnesota with Sam Darnold. And I don't have a real strong take because any take I could have could be wrong. They could franchise tag him. I don't think they will. Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport are reporting yesterday they're working on a deal with Sam Darnold. And it's a crazy story because they drafted J.J. McCarthy, they have Daniel Jones, and they're working on a deal. So it's funny. I think we forget this. Josh Allen was the MVP last season, right? It was going to be Lamar or Josh Allen. You do realize that Josh Allen last year had a couple of stinkers. He went 9 for 30 in a game against Houston and had a 56 passer rating. Remember that game? He also was awful against the Colts. No touchdown, 2 picks, and a passer rating of 60. That's the MVP. We watched Patrick Mahomes struggle twice against the Raiders and be awful against the Eagles. Let's just remember that we have to be totally honest about this. Let's just talk about last year with Minnesota, a team picked for 4th. Sam Darnold played with a roster that wasn't as good as Mahomes' roster and wasn't as good as Josh Allen's roster. Let's look at the splits on Sam Darnold. I think what Kevin O'Connell is saying is this guy's insanely talented. We're not sure J.J. McCarthy is as good as him. So if you start looking at Sam Darnold last year, yes, he had a couple of really bad games. But in the first 16 games of the year, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, 14-2, 68% completion percentage. By the way, he lost his left tackle midway through the season and a passer rating of 106.5. Yes, did he lose to the Rams? They had a better roster. Did he lose to the Lions? In Detroit, game of the decade. Yes, they had a better roster. So, I mean, go back to Mahomes and Josh Allen that had, better rosters. They had awful games. And so I think, and Minnesota was picked for third or fourth. Remember their over-under was it like 6 or something? So I think what Kevin O'Connell is saying is, listen, guys, don't go crazy on the last 2 games. Is that Sam Darnold is in his prime, put up insane numbers in a division, in an NFC that was better this year than it was the previous 2 years, and we're going to negotiate with him. And I'm trying to figure out why they have J.J. McCarthy, and people are like, well, the injury. I don't know. I watch these young athletes. They're always healthier in rehab sooner than later. I don't think it's an injury. I think they're looking at Sam Darnold and they're thinking, well, I mean, the Niners drafted a quarterback. They never played him much, and they were fine. Like you. I mean, RG3, Washington moved off him to Kirk Cousins in the 4th round of the same draft, and they were fine. I just wonder if Kevin O'Connell's saying, is everybody watching what happened? Like, this guy was a step below Josh Allen last year. You don't do that out of luck or good fortune. Minnesota was not a great roster. They had 2 really good receivers. So that's the only thing. I mean, that's really the only thing I can figure out in Minnesota right now, because the story is, according to legitimate reporters, they're working on a Sam Darnold deal in Minnesota. And they're not doing franchise tag, which is a 1-year deal. They're working on a contract. I mean, honestly, we sat there this morning. I'm like, isn't Kevin O'Connell telling you? I mean, yesterday I theorized they're just saying nice things about him to get him on the market and pay him back for what he did to the team. But when 2 legitimate reporters come out and go, yeah, we're working on a deal with Sam, and it's not a franchise, maybe Kevin O'Connell is just saying, go look at the numbers. You're being way too harsh on him. We watched Mahomes and Josh Allen have terrible Sundays.
Okay, how about this? Listening to you, I just internalized, and I'm like, well, what if Darnold looked around the landscape and said, I don't want to go to Vegas. Colts or nothing. I'm definitely not going back to New York. Hey, guys, I'll stay in Minnesota on a cheap deal. Give me 25, 30 million. Forget 40, 45. I don't need it. I'll take a cheaper deal to stay here, and I'll tutor McCarthy. What if he's willing to take less to stay in Minnesota because he loves it there?
Well, first of all, it's always been it's funny. They don't have Super Bowls, but I've never thought of Minnesota as poorly owned or poorly run. They've always been viable. They just, it's like, I've always thought the Minnesota Vikings, because the Packers are in their division, we don't talk about them a lot. I've always thought they draft well, they develop, they're well owned. The Wilf family never, you don't hear about chaos or nonsense. They always have the quarterback situation. I mean, I don't know. I look at it and I think if Kevin O'Connell is willing to draft a quarterback and want to re-sign Darnold, then Darnold's better than all of us are giving him credit for. We are punishing him because he didn't work with the Jets. Who works with the Jets?
Nobody does. That's a fact.
Well, ask Aaron Rodgers. Who works with the Jets?
Didn't you say Minnesota nice was like a thing? Is that like
yes.
a known thing?
Yeah.
I've never been to that part of the country.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But I hear good things.
No, it's great. It's a great place.